Paranormal UK Radio, the flagship show on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. I'm your host, Irene and Mark, and with me tonight again, as once and always, and I am thinking of his name, Mark Johnson.
Hey, it came to you. I'm impressed.
Yeah, because I read it this time.
Yeah, well, that's what you should. You should have it typed up on a sheet in front of you because, you know, you forget my name every show. So we've only been working together like 5 or 6 years, but...
Yeah, but no, last week I didn't remember. No, I didn't forget last week because I did have it on a piece of paper.
Ah.
I did.
You need a Post-it note put right there, so...
Yeah, I could do that.
Remember who your bloody co-host is.
Yeah, I'll put a Post-it note on my forehead.
So, before we get in tonight, how's your summer going so far?
Hot. Very hot, sticky, sweaty. And, well, I tell you what, Mark. You know what? I bought these tripod sprinklers for the garden.
Yes.
Okay, because it's such a blasted big garden, you know, and running around it with a hose pipe, I just look like a loopy. So I tripod sprinklers, and I've been running in and out under them. Fantastic. The kids are going to absolutely love it when they come down. It does save building a swimming pool.
With or without clothing? and have the neighbors complained yet?
No. Lucky enough, you know, this house is detached, but
you know, the cows. But I bet the cows. The cows in the back field probably got a shock.
Well, it's a farmer I'm worried about. Even will take one look at me and think, "Oh, a cow got out." Look at the adults on that one. Should I have said that?
Yeah.
Sorry, people. Honestly, sorry, people.
Oh, that's
terrible. What I'm like.
Terrible. Oh, well.
I know.
Well, I'm glad you're actually getting a summer this year.
Yeah, it makes a change, doesn't it? You know, I moved down here in 2006 and the weather was absolutely glorious that year. From that year on, we got the odd week here and we got the odd week there, but we never had a full summer until so far this year. But when this is a heat wave, this isn't the summer, this is a heat wave. Do you know, my front drive, now I'm rattling on here, I'm sorry about this, people, but my front drive, there's all brown leaves all across the drive, all along the drive from the trees. The trees are shedding their leaves to survive. Wow. Because there is no water in the ground. So what the trees are doing, they're shedding off leaves. I looked up. But it does look like, if you look out, I'm looking out the window now and it looks like autumn out there.
Huh.
Because of all the leaves all over the place.
Lovely.
So, well, yeah, what about you then? Well, I hear you went to Central Park.
Yes. The wife and I went to Central Park this weekend in New York City. We walked the entire length of the park, which is about 6 miles all the way around. Gorgeous day. We had our own heat wave until just a couple days ago, and then it broke, so it was beautiful weather, got lots of exercise. And it's funny to say that you're out in nature when you're in the middle of New York City, but the park is so huge, you feel like you're out in the middle of nowhere sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. So there is no stately home in the park or anything?
No stately homes, but there are restaurants, and you can go gondolas.
Yeah.
And there's fields for playing baseball or soccer or whatever, and they even have Shakespeare in the park.
Yeah?
Yep.
No, well, we do that. We have operas in air parks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always do. Hyde Park, there's always an opera in the summer going on in Hyde Park.
It's funny because I'm a California boy. I grew up in California, you know, and California, L.A. and New York always hated each other. But I come out here and I find, I had to admit, I like New York. It's a cool town.
Oh, it's good for shopping.
Oh, well, yeah, it's expensive for shopping, but it's good for shopping.
Oh, it's cheaper than London for shopping. That's why we all go out to New York to shop for Christmas.
Oh, as you should.
Yeah, because, you know, everything's cheaper. So there you go.
There we are.
Forget it. Right, go on then. Where are we? Who have we got with us tonight?
I don't know. Who do we have?
We have Paul Sinclair and we have Chris Evers from Outer Limits magazine. And Paul Sinclair, who is and I'm going to have trouble saying this because I do have trouble with long words, ufologist.
Ufologist, I would just say researcher of all things strange.
Yes.
See,
hello. Paul.
See, you know what I call myself there?
Hello.
A paracrypto ufologist.
Yeah, you
Right.
are.
That covers everything right there. Crypto, ufologist. There we are.
And basically, we all just look into the unexplained and come up with our own theories and our own opinions on what is responsible for this subject that seems to leave us with very little clues, but we know it's real.
That's true. That's very true. And we've been at it for a long time, some of us too.
Yeah, some of us quite a long time. Quite a long time. Personally speaking, since 1974.
Nearly as long as me. Nearly.
Well, I would think so, Irene. Yeah, quite, long time.
Yeah.
Seen things come, seen things go.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and seeing things change.
Absolutely, most definitely.
Especially the paranormal world, the way it's changed has come, from the early days, it's been, it's really turned around. Some good, some bad.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah. I mean, as great as the internet is, I think too many people nowadays have become armchair ufologists, and unlike Paul, probably yourselves as well, they don't get up off the backsides and get out there and actually investigate things. As good as the internet is, we could do more to encourage investigations away from the laptop or the PC.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're so right. The investigations, the internet has its place, but you can't beat feet on the ground research and talking to first-hand witnesses. And I don't see a lot of people doing it. I mean, here in the UK, shall we say, anyway, and that's the only way. That's why we've got such a lack of new cases, and everybody's rehashing the old cases, which are important, and and the impact that they've made on the subject cannot be denied. But there's only so many times you can milk it. There's only so many times you can dig the information out, because most of it has been done, overdone, and redone.
That's right.
And most of the stuff I write about, nobody's ever heard of, and I've got a paper trail for anybody who wants to follow it for most of the stuff that I'm speaking about. I've not got proof, as in I can prove that aliens have done this, or some kind of paranormal phenomena is capable of creating the effects that people have experienced. But I usually have a paper trail where I've been in archives and taped accounts from people who've had these experiences, and for me, that's the way I operate. That's the only way to be with it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Get out there, people. Get on your feet. Get out there and start looking for yourselves. Don't sit there and rehash other people's work on computers.
Yeah, I would also say as well, it's great doing that, but if a gentleman by the name of Graham Bertel, who I'm sure we all know here, once said that extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. So don't just accept what people are telling you on the internet, on Facebook or whatever. Get out there, investigate, and find out for yourself. It's so important to do that.
Yeah.
That's correct. That's correct, Chris. And the beauty about it, we as investigators could benefit from other people doing it. It's not a closed shop. The stuff I'm looking into is not unique to Paul Sinclair. If I talk about a case and I bring something up, for instance, ZA610, an aircraft that crashed in 1985 that I know nobody else in the world's investigated, but that don't mean it's mine. I don't own it. The information,
exactly.
Anybody who wants to investigate that aircraft, then do it. If you're going to use work that I've done, then at least give Paul a credit for saying this was found by him. But
absolutely.
But there are so many researchers out there, and I know one or two of them, armchair researchers, that don't give the credit. They do pinch other people's work and then put it out there as their own.
You're so right.
And they really they hold no guilt over it. Then their conscience is clear.
And then
They
other
think
people,
because they found it on the internet, they've got every right to it.
and
they've researched it. Sorry, Mark.
No, that's okay. No, I mean, I know one or two of these people as well, and they pass themselves off as experts, and they get on other radio shows and talk about this case and that case, and yet they've never gotten off, behind the computer to go out and actually look into it.
Mark, you know what the definition of an expert is, don't you? X as in used to be, spare as in big drip. So, they need to get off the backsides, get out there and do a bit of investigation, But having said that, I'm guilty of not doing that because I'm now just a magazine publisher. My days of investigations, direct investigations, I've kind of like gone. Although I will look into something that is unusual in my local area if something comes along and I find interesting enough to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's like me, I used to be out investigating all the time, but not no more because I want to do the radio. But if something happens in this area and I'm going to be talking about it on the radio, I will go out there and I will interview the person.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm doing with a magazine. If something, your thing is the radio, my thing is getting the magazine out to show the evidence and get it globally. Get it out there globally.
Yeah. You have a role to play then, don't you?
Exactly.
There's not thousands upon thousands. Well, there probably is, but in the grand scheme of things, of radio hosts or magazine. People who are producing magazines about the unexplained and UFOs and paranormal. So you do have a place in this subject, Chris, even if it's not as deeply involved in the research as it used to be.
Well, that's exactly right.
Well, we are reporters. We're reporters, and
we're all reporters, aren't we? Yeah, absolutely.
That's it. Yeah.
Gathering people's stories, allowing people to put this information out there, allowing the listeners to sort of evaluate and think, is that guy talking complete bull, or this guy or this lady or this man seems on the money? I'll have a look at the stuff that they're researching, and ultimately they form their own opinions. I mean, what you said earlier, people can just take anything off the internet and claim it as their own, and these people sometimes end up with a following, and before you know it, the actual researcher and his research, it's as though he doesn't own it. It's so hard to decipher who actually first started, at the root of the investigation.
Yeah.
It just gets diluted by lots of people.
Yeah. And of course, when things are diluted, things can be added as well, which might not have happened, which is another subject altogether.
Chinese whispers. That's the story.
That's right.
Goes round, it changes.
A little bit of embellishment.
Reinforcements were going to advance. It turns into send 3 and 4 pence. We're going to a dance. And at the end of the day, people will accept the second part of that statement as being correct, when in reality they should go to the, track it down, dig it out and search. And that is exactly why I like Paul and why, he spoke at last year's conference and he'll be speaking at our conference this year also. He's a little digger.
To it. Yesterday morning we walked off the field. We went onto it at 8 a.m. and we walked off just after 4 a.m. So I've had 3 hours sleep, and Chris Turner's here, and I want him to be able to make the best of his time.
Is he there with you, actually?
Chris is in the kitchen just doing a bit of work, and I've got headset on, so he couldn't contribute because he can't hear us.
Oh, that's a shame.
But I mean, I recommend anybody. I'll give Chris a plug. I recommend anybody go on YouTube, type in Elusive, and he's put the small trailers out of the documentary that he's producing, and I think it's fabulous. I really got a lot of faith in it, not just because I'm in it, but because I've only got a small part in this, but lots of people have contributed.
All right. Okay, hold on a second. So that people is typing Elusive into Google and look at the documentary by Chris Turner, and and Paul Sinclair's in it. He's in it.
I am, Elusive. I'm talking about the Flixton werewolf and other things. I mean, we were on the field last night in this affected area, in this area of ice strangeness, where you've got an all sort of plethora of unexplained activity manifesting that I think we spoke about it before, that shouldn't be connected but must be because of the closeness of location and the time frames in which it's happening. We've got big cats, we've got sheep being mutilated, we've got deer being mutilated, harbour porpoise, the small dolphins, all in the same time frames, all with massive trauma around their necks and jaws, and not being consumed for their flesh. So it's not a predator. And bearing in mind, Irene, we're in the UK.
It's mutilation, isn't it?
Yeah, we're in the UK. If allegedly we've not got no sort of big cats, although they are being seen, but our main predator is the fox and the badger, and they're not going to catch a roe deer stag.
Yeah, but even if they do, Paul, they're just going to rip it to pieces. There's going to be scratch marks on it. There's going to be teeth, claw marks, everything in the animal. These things, it's done with precision, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Like it's so expertly done. It's not an animal attack. Definitely not an animal attack on these things. You get a lot of that in Spain. I was going to say, Mark. Why did I say Spain?
Maybe because the rain in Spain is on the plane. I don't know.
It's probably worldwide, you know what I mean? And I'm highlighting it because, as I said before, I'm sort of 24/7. I'm involved in this almost 7 days a week. So I'm lucky that this phenomena is sort of manifesting in the area where I'm local. And I'm managing to highlight it. And it's not just, we haven't got proof, but we've got proof in photographic evidence, which is absolutely gruesome. And we've got proof of lights under the ocean, under the North Sea. Yeah. So it is proof. I don't know what it's proof of, Irene or Mark. I don't know. It's proof of something that we can't identify, something that we've no explanation for occurring and manifesting in the area. It's not. We can't say what it is.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I can't.
No. That's very true.
There was an article in the New York Post, I think it was in 2005. Yeah. Where it suggested that over 10,000 animal mutilations had actually occurred up to that point. And now we're 13 years down the line?
That's in the States, though. That's in
correct.
America. Yeah.
That's correct.
Well, I know they've been happening over here, and I know they've been happening over here for years because I found articles online a few years back about some mutilations that took place in Wales.
Yeah.
Was it sheep, Irene?
Huh?
Well, the sheep or...
Yeah, sheep.
Yeah.
Sheep.
Yeah, Tony Dodd was quite involved with that as well as David Caton as well. He's really the man to speak to for UK mutilations and so on, But yeah, very fascinating, and this is all going on, isn't it, Paul?
And of course, it's all covered up.
20-mile radius of Bridlington.
It is, yeah. It's in close proximity.
And again, Paul, it's all covered up by the government, isn't it? A farmer down the road, he gets his sheep mutilated and everything. Nobody in the vicinity gets to hear about it. It doesn't get into the newspapers. It's shut up straight away.
Irene, this has been going on all through 2017 and into 2018, and there's been nothing in our local papers.
No.
The police are aware of it. They've staked the field out on more than one occasion with night sights, with night scopes, and they're no wiser to what's doing it. The farmer believes that his words are that it is a phenomena that is killing his sheep. I've not put them words into his mouth. I contacted him and said, I'd found out about what was happening, and I asked him if he'd minded if I investigated the killings, and I never spoke of anything paranormal. And my first port of call was all the livestock auctions in East and North Yorkshire to find out if other farms in the area within, say, a 50-mile radius were being affected. And I found out one other farm about 40 miles away as the crow flies has suffered similar losses, and that is at Ravenscar, once again on the edge of the North Sea. And once again, I don't know if the light forms, the lights that are seen over the sea are responsible for any of this, but the lights are seen in conjunction with this unexplained phenomena. And it just...
That is in that particular area. They're in conjunction with the phenomena in that. I'm getting these long words out, people. In that particular area, but in other areas where there is animal mutilations and it's not. It don't matter where you are in Wales, really. It's not that far to the sea.
No, it's not unique. It's not confined to the area I'm looking at. I think
No.
all
But
around the UK.
I was just wondering whether any of the other UK mutilations are close enough to the sea, and people have seen these lights going in and out.
I would have
other
thought
than
so.
that area, yeah.
I would have. I mean, if you jump to your side at Pond, Mark, and briefly touch on the Skinwalker Ranch, they had the strange light anomalies, and the lights, the lights that allegedly, when it was the Sherman Ranch, they talk of a blue orb, a blue light that lured some dogs out into the fields away from the owners, and they heard the dogs yelp, and when the farmer allegedly got to the area the next day, all that there was, I think, was 3 sticky, oily patches on the ground, and the dogs were never seen again. I mean, it's a strange story, but it's still one connected to unusual lights sort of causing massive trauma if it's true. And there's enough stories coming out of Skinwalker to sort of give the listener some kind of idea that this area, that area over there, is an highly strange area.
High strangeness, yeah.
Well, the Skinwalker Ranch, I've done a lot of research into. I read the book by Colm Kelleher and George Knapp. And, that type of area, there's a couple of locations around, especially in the United States, that have these high concentrations of high strangeness. And the one thing lately over the last couple of years, I've really been focusing on these so-called balls of light. Because these things, whatever they are, seem intelligent. They've been witnessed by a number of people in various locations. I've seen little blinks of balls of light during some investigations I've done. But, if you go, like they talk about them at the Skinwalker Ranch, they're seen in other areas. There's over in Romania, there's the Hayu-Baciu Forest, another area of supposed really high strangeness activity.
We want to get there, don't we?
Yes, and several teams have gone out there, and the locals report seeing these balls of lights in the wood, and some television crews have gone out there and recorded these orange and reddish colored balls of light floating through the woods. One story I've told is a friend of mine in Ohio, Tim Stover, who's a Bigfoot researcher. He had a sighting 20-something years ago. He's been looking for it again ever since. And a couple years ago, he was out in the woods, and he had an encounter with one of these balls of light coming out of the woods and floating up and hovering right in front of his face for about 30 seconds. And he called me up on the phone. I just happened to be at the store at the time, and he called me up from the middle of the woods. He was still out there, panicking a bit, freaking out over this encounter. He said, I didn't know who else to call, so I called you to tell you about it. And I started getting some ideas, some impressions started hitting me. So I was asking questions. I go, well, how did you feel when you saw the light? And he thought about it and goes, well, you know what? I felt perfectly calm and relaxed. And I'm going, who would be perfectly calm and relaxed when this ball of light floats out of the woods and hovers right in front of your face 3 feet away? But he was calm the entire time until he thought to reach for his cell phone to get a picture. And once he reached for his cell phone, it winked out. And when it disappeared, that's when the fear hit him. But while it was there, he was calm. And so something tells me that these types of phenomenon are whether they're a type of energy, I don't like to call them spirits. I don't believe it's a spirit. I think what we're dealing with is an advanced form of intelligence, whether you want to call it aliens or elementals or other types of entities. We may not be able to classify it yet, but they exist. They move with purpose. Some can be benevolent, and some, like the case of the dogs at the Skinwalker Ranch, can be very malevolent.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I agree. And that's that. I mean, Chris will probably know what I'm going to say next. In 2002, I started a website because that was the root of my investigation at the time about the intelligence of these lights. And the website was called Intelligent Light Forms. And that, you know, I sort of coined this phrase that these lights had an awareness. There was some kind of intelligence. And I'll echo what you've just said there, Mark, about what they may be and what they may not be. We just don't know. But that's what we're off out to try and investigate tonight. The lights seen off the coast. And I think you've seen similar things, Chris, haven't you? That's
correct, yeah. I mean, my sighting with the lights goes back to the mid to late 1990s. We was at the we was at the back of the British Aerospace Factory, 2 or 3 of us. I used to run the Hull UFO Society, and we'd gone to do a skywatch. And, of course, we're all there. We had our cameras, etc. It was all video back in those days, nothing digital. And we just thought to ourselves, oh, there's nothing happening here, we'll go somewhere else, let's go up on the hills at the back over there. And as we put all the gear away, a ball of light flies down the opposite bank, down a hill on the opposite bank of the river. It flies along to about midpoint in the river, and I stand and watch it and going to the right up towards Goole. I'm in Kingston upon Hull on the north bank of the River Humber, and this light flew off towards Goole, got so far down the river and it blinked out, just completely disappeared. And I turned to my 2 colleagues and I said, oh, it's gone. And they both said to me, no, it hasn't. It's going under the Humber Bridge, which was off to our left, about maybe 3 or 4 miles away. And this light had come down, split into 2 and gone in 2 different directions. You know, what is that? What is it that's doing that and coming down and doing it over water? Water, to me, does seem to be involved in quite a lot of these things, like Bempton, you know, areas of Wales, you know.
I would agree. I would entirely agree with what you've just said, you know, and water and watercourses seem to be prevalent in sightings of cryptids as well. It seems to be streams and running water. I don't know. Obviously, if they're a flesh and blood creature, which I don't know whether they are or whether there's something interdimensional, but they're going to have to eat and drink. So you'd think they would be near water. But jumping back to the lights, what we've been investigating here at Bempton, they've got the fishermen, the local rock anglers, talk about the ghost of Big Railings. There's a big stand where they set the fishing gear up and fish, and they call it the Ghost of Big Railings. And they say during the evenings, when it's late on, they see a white light. It looks like a headlight, you know, the powerful Cree headlights. Yeah. And when they get down to Big Railings, there's nothing there. So what they're talking about, they're sort of describing it as though it is the presence of some kind of, or the apparition of a deceased person, the Ghost of Big Railings. And in actual fact, it's a light. In Danes Dyke, which is about 3 or 4 miles away from where I'm sat right now, it's an ancient earthworks, Neolithic it is, about 3,600 years old. They've got the White Lady, the ghost of the White Lady. Mm-hmm. And I've spoke to numerous people, Irene, about the ghost of, the White Lady of Danes Dyke. And it's a sphere of light. Nobody's actually seen the floating apparition of a white lady. So, you know, they're getting attributed the lights in some cases to like a human type presence, when in actual fact it's just a sphere of light. But once again, the human thing to do is to put it into something we can understand.
Yeah. Yeah. And didn't the sailors on fishermen and everything report ghost lights out at sea?
That's the same thing, Irene.
Ghost lights?
Yep, this is what we're looking at. This is the same thing. And what about the Foo Fighters? You know, the spheres of light that the pilots in World War II, both sides reported seeing when flying over the sea. These fiery orange balls of light that accompanied their planes and did manoeuvres and outmanoeuvred them and all sorts of strange things. Well, we'll probably deal with this phenomena as I'm not speaking down to anybody because I know you guys know this, but this phenomena has been around us since before we started documenting it. It's probably older than us.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just going
back, it more likely goes back hundreds of years.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if you just go back to the livestock deaths under unexplained circumstances, one of the earliest known incidents actually occurred in 1606. around the city of London and some of the shires that were around there. All slaughters of sheep had been made, in some places to number 100. Now, in 1606, there was no aircraft, no balloons, no dirigibles, etc., etc. So what was doing this then in 1606, So... Yeah. These things have been going on hundreds of years.
Even with surgical equipment and everything, we didn't have that precision equipment in 1606.
No, exactly.
Well,
to perform the procedures, that's true.
You can go back even farther to Christopher Columbus, 1492, his first voyage across to the New World. He reported in his logs about seeing these strange lights out at the sea, coming in and out of the water.
Wasn't he heading towards the Bermuda area, though, when he saw those, if I remember correctly, Mark?
Yes, coming in towards Bermuda. Well, coming in, he reached more of the South Caribbean. But
that's correct.
But yeah, he was coming into those areas, and he recorded in his ship's log about seeing those lights one night.
Yeah. Yeah, so we live in a mysterious world, as Arthur Clarke once said.
Well, going back to the intelligence of them, and bringing up the Skinwalker Ranch, again, another piece of the intelligence was one time, while the family who had owned the ranch had already moved out, the NIDS people moved in, Robert Bigelow's team. And they were setting up cameras around the area, and they were trying, to try to catch phenomenon. And one night while they were out there, one of the researchers they were seeing these balls of light, and one of the researchers suddenly got a message in his head very strongly that said, "We're watching you." Now, what does that tell you?
As though they were already 1, 2, 3, 4 steps ahead of anything that we were trying to get on these intelligences. We're probably reading our minds, Mark.
Exactly. And another thought about these is...
Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, another thought about these lights is, can they transform? And are they maybe possibly representations of other types of phenomenon where, there's stories going back for millennia, even especially there in the British Isles. You have all of the tales of, the fae, the leprechauns, the other pixies, all these very elemental types of creatures. And they have stories about them shape-shifting. Even Native American cultures have stories of shapeshifters. And yet these balls of light... what I found interesting about the story I told earlier with Tim Stover and seeing the balls of light in the woods is there's a part of me that thinks that may have been related to what he was looking for, which is Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it, because there's stories of these creatures appearing and disappearing at will, or seeming to be able to camouflage. Are we dealing with something that's more interdimensional? Or they have different properties than what we would think of as regular matter and can appear or disappear at will, and maybe are even represented by these balls of light?
I think that there's a lot of truth in what you've said, I'm on that same kind of page. And I do think there's an interdimensional element to this. And, when people sort of say everything went silent, everything changed, the mood, the air seemed still. And I think we're probably entering some kind of thin area, some kind of area where our world and another sphere of existence are joining, and there's I wouldn't say a portal, but some kind of transition where these things can manifest, and if we enter it, maybe everything hasn't gone quiet, maybe probably just entered this strange area of strangeness. That's the word. I didn't coin that. It's been done far before, longer than I thought of it. But there's just so many things. We're talking about these balls of light, and lots of people have talked about them before us, and nobody seems to have an actual handle on what they are. You've just been talking about seeing them in conjunction with Bigfoot sightings and, probably alleged dogman sightings and fairies and elemental type creatures. And I think you're on the money with it. I think there is some truth to this. I've wondered when we've seen these lights over the sea, whether there's anything structured behind the lights, or whether, as you hinted then, the lights can just simply transform and become something else that we can perceive as a structured UFO or a Bigfoot or something else. Maybe they can be anything a heart desires. I mean, these areas of high strangeness, they seem to throw out all types of phenomena. And as I said before, I don't know whether it's the area that attracts it or the area that emits it. It's a difficult one.
Yeah, it's also quite interesting as well, Paul, that a lot of these orbs and and events are actually associated with ley lines. I mean, there's an area where you're investigating, as we know, which is in the Leys, I think they call it. Is that correct, Paul?
That's correct. Yeah, and you'll find that. I feel like I'm talking to people, and I know you already know, guys, but you'll find that a lot of these areas of high strangeness, there's lots of burial mounds and amongst them, just in our country and in other countries. And these people, these ancient people, I don't think they just put a burial mound there because they thought, oh, that'll be a nice place.
We do the same thing, though, Paul, because... And was I talking to Paul? Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm all over the place here. It's the heat. Ley lines. What do we put on ley lines? We put cathedrals. We put churches.
Places of importance.
Importance and burial grounds.
And jump into the burial mound. You know, the sort of Mesolithic burial mounds, what the ancient people put on the land. I think that they realised that land were of great significance. They've probably seen these strange apparitions and these strange lights manifesting, and thought, we're going to put our sort of tribute and our mark on the land in these areas of high strangeness. I think the strangeness was there before the burial mound. I think the burial mound was added afterwards because they realised this particular area of land was highly significant.
Yeah.
That's really why you find a lot of churches and cathedrals, etc., religious buildings are actually built on these kind of places. It was their way of Christianity, shall we say, for want of a better argument, beginning to dominate the local beliefs. Exactly, Paul, exactly. I mean, I don't want to get into a religious debate or anything like that, but some of the religions, they're so mixed up in some of the things that they do. For example, when you see pictures of Jesus at Christmas with a halo around his head, that's the significant sun worship. The S-U-N, not the S-O-N, because obviously, as we probably all know here, that time of year is the Saturnalia, when, the birth of the new sun, which was celebrated, in Roman times. And of course, all the dates for Christmas, etc., were all organised by Constantinople, when Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire.
That's true.
But again, he brought all these pagan things in, dominated it with Christianity, and they've done that and carried on doing that. They got rid of the Druids, they got rid of, witches. I mean, think how many witches that have been burnt in the UK, since about 1600. It's all wrong.
Well,
all over Europe they were burning them, weren't they?
Yeah, the one thing I want to know is, Christmas is supposed to be Jesus' birthday. Wait, let me say this. Christmas is supposed to be Jesus' birthday, yet I don't see where there's anywhere of decorating a tree in the Bible.
Well, the best thing to do there is just remember this. When the angels came and told the shepherds, to put it bluntly, that that baby Jesus was going to be born, etc., etc., they were in the fields tending the flocks. Now, even in old Palestine, Jerusalem area, Israel, whatever you want to call it, in the ancient days, they would not be out in the fields in December, because you can get snow on the ground there at that time of year. I really do think that the date that was picked, again, it was simply to celebrate the Saturnalia. I think it's more likely that it was actually born mid-year to August time, so what you guys would call fall, what we would call autumn. So, it's a fascinating subject.
Oh, it certainly is. And also, by the way, before we start, we stand corrected. The UK, I believe, during the time of the witch trials and everything, were hanging them. They weren't burning them. They were being burnt in Europe.
Right. Okay.
I know somebody's going to correct us on that one. So, get there.
No, it's absolutely. We're here to be corrected and learn.
Jumping briefly to the churches, but built on old pagan sites and old different religious sites. A few miles away from where I'm sat now, and not far from Chris Evers, we've got the tallest standing stone in Great Britain, the Redstone Monolith. Yeah. And there's a church, obviously, in the grounds where the Redstone Monolith stands, probably about 40 foot away. And this it's called the Rood Stone, and it lines up. It's on a ley line, and it lines up with a famous burial mound, probably one of the most famous in Great Britain, called Willie Howe, where lots of strange things have happened around Willie Howe. And that line goes all the way through towards Whitby to standing stones called the Devil's Arrows. And, how did these people know to...
Well, they mapped them, didn't they? They've actually done maps. And if you look, all these places, megalithic places and burial places and things like that, they all are on this grid with these ley lines. And it's fantastic.
Yeah,
but like you say, how did they know?
I mean, we talk about them as though they're sort of primitive, and obviously in terms of they didn't write and they didn't sort of document it as we are documenting things now, and they talk about folklore as though it's some kind of inferior documentation. They forget to say that people probably couldn't write in those days, and that was their only way of documenting these stories. So they do have their place. They're not, just because it's called folklore does not mean that there's no grains of truth or some element of truth attached to these stories, because a lot of the stories that have come from folklore, we're still getting the stories today coming out of those places. We're still getting stories of little people at Willie Howe, the burial mound. I have a pilot encounter over Willie Howe where a guy who had a light aircraft was flying over the burial mound, and he claims that he saw another sun. This is 1996, and he sort of looked, and he says, no, the sun's setting. He said to himself, the sun's setting over there. And he looked, and he said, there's another sun. He said, and then suddenly, he said it was as though somebody had put the brakes on a car. We know he's in a plane, but he's trying to give me this analogy. He said the plane stopped in the air. He said, no, but I was in a vintage aircraft that weren't equipped for night flying. Yeah. He said, I'm not going any faster. I'm going at the same speed. And he says, I've only got 3 meters on this plane. He said, and I'm not going up or down. He says, and I'm confused. He said, and then a space of time passed, and suddenly I'm flying again, and it's night time. Yeah. And there's a tractor in a field, and he had to put the plane down in the field. He'd got a period of missing time, and this is over a burial mound. I mean, what kind of phenomena, if this guy's telling the truth, what kind of phenomena can do that, can suspend an aircraft in the air, do whatever it had to do in this period of missing time, leave a guy so disorientated. He said I saw the Humber Bridge, or he says, or Hull. He says I could have flown. He says, but I weren't equipped for night flying. How could I have explained what had just happened to me? He says that have stopped me flying. He says I put it down in a field, but over a burial mound. Reports of little people around the same burial mound. William of Newburgh, probably 300 years ago, documented elves and pixies around Willie Howe. And that's documented, where this chap travelling on a horse was given a cup of unknown origin and unknown metal. And he did a runner with the cup. Now, you think to yourself, well, this is just a fairy story. But the story becomes real in a way because it was given to Edward the Elder as a wedding present, and that is documented in history, this cup of unknown origin that was retaken allegedly from Willie Howe. It then went to one of the kings of England because he wanted to see this cup, and now it sort of gets lost then in the annals of time. It's possible that it's in the antiquities in York Minster. Whether anybody with any knowledge of looking at these things or accessing it would actually find that out, I don't know. I've thought about it on numerous occasions because you can document the cup, what as they call it, the fairy cup. It was real, and it was given to one of the kings, Edward the Elder, and then a king of England. So stories like this coming from these burial mounds, and then contemporary stories in present time of spheres of light around the mounds. Nothing's changed. These things are still occurring.
Yeah, it's quite interesting as well that, back then, as we discussed earlier, they do call them pixies or fairies, etc., etc. Small people, because you could be called aliens, ET, greys. It all shows, it all encompasses the same field of investigation.
Yeah, it does. It does. And this is what you like, isn't it, Mark?
Oh yeah, I mean, I there's so much that I'm interested in. I can't be limited to one thing, because I feel that so much of what we're dealing with is interconnected. It's more interconnected than people want to realize.
It's linked.
That's why I use the term, I call myself a paracryptoufologist, because it's a little bit of everything from paranormal, what we think of as paranormal, to cryptozoology, strange creatures, unexplained entities, to, UFOs, aliens. Are they really UFOs and aliens? Are they really from another planet? Or are they coming from maybe another dimension? Are they coming from somewhere else? Are they time travelers from the future? We really don't know.
No, we don't know. What we're dealing with is opinions. As me and Paul have discussed this before. And your opinion is no less invalid than my opinion. We're all here to search, discuss, find out the truth, and if we can, to get to the bottom of the events that are going on.
Yeah, that's very true, and you're spot on. I mean, it's all everybody's individual opinions, and there'll be truth in what you're saying, Mark, just like there'll be truth in what Chris is saying, Irene and myself, and it's such an head-banging subject, because as much as we think we've got an handle on something that's happening, and then something else happens which opens another door and throws you into another dark corridor and sort of turns what you were actually starting to believe on its head. It's happened to me quite a few times. I mean, Chris Turner were only talking about it today and saying, looking into the British cryptids, that he's changed his views slightly to what he was thinking a few years ago, and that's no bad thing. I think that's a good researcher that can look at things from another angle and not get so stuck and dogged down in the ways that they don't think that there's alternative views.
Well, this is it. You've got to look at it with different eyes. Everything you've got to look at with different eyes, because if you don't, and you get tunnel visions, you just look at it something like a UFO. Okay, that's a UFO. That is a solid vehicle from outer space, from another planet, sort of thing.
Some people are of that belief, Irene, aren't they?
No. Yeah.
It's quite interesting.
But then again, okay, it might be able to go through wormholes and get here, and Jap knows the amount of years. You don't know, but then again, it could be dimensional.
I think so.
And I would rather say it's dimensional,
Yeah,
I mean, when the so-called modern era of ufology began, which to me was the Kenneth Arnold sighting, the things that were seen were solid nuts and bolt craft. But over the years, they've changed, haven't they? Again, going back to orbs or lightning balls or whatever you want to call them, So nowadays,
they're breathing.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, how many have actually, as anybody, should I say, actually done a study to find out what the percentage is nowadays of orbs being seen or solid craft being seen?
Probably haven't, Chris.
That sounds like an article for the magazine.
Yeah. Well, it does. Yeah, it certainly does. But is it because we're changing? Is it because years and years ago we expected, if we saw something flying around in the sky, we expected it to be made of metal?
Yeah, flying saucer. Yeah. Is it the phenomena, Irene, that can change and adapt? And it's not us that's and to our changing culture, to our advancement, to our changes in technology. Is it and is the phenomena just a chameleon that's just adjusting?
It could be. It could be that adjusting. It could be us adjusting. It could be, well, I'm going crazy here. Sorry.
Welcome to the club.
Well, look at it this way. If you look at over time, what perceptions we've had over time, in the distant past, any of these strange phenomenon would be chalked up to the gods. You know, whether there's, you see a comet in the sky and, you think it's a harbinger of doom. Nobody knew it was a big ice ball running through the solar system, melting as it went. UFO type of lights could be considered anything from, gods to angels to whatever. Now, in the 20th century, it was, nuts and bolts, UFOs, aliens from another planet. Now that is starting to change. And so where are we going to be, let's say, in 100 years from now? Are we going to be any closer to solving the mystery? And if not,
maybe we already, we might know by then.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with that. We'll. There's one thing for sure, Irene. We won't.
We won't be there to find out, will we?
But it's people like us that are scratching our heads and digging and thinking and trying to decipher it that paved the way for the people that Mark's talking about in the future. It's just a snowball gathering information, and that's all we can do. We might never see the truth of it in our lifetime, and that doesn't daunt me in the slightest, because I know it's real, and I've just got to keep on searching, and I know you do, and Mark, and so does Chris. But
yeah, absolutely,
it doesn't mean that we've got to give up because we're never going to find the actual answer. It's a thrill when something presents itself, should we say. I mean, we're quite looking forward to going out tonight, and it'll be a late one, but just on the chance that we might see the phenomena, and that's, for me, that's what it's all about.
But I do believe that a lot of this is dimensional. I really do, and I believe in dimensions, Mark.
Oh yes,
I've been in enough of them.
Yep. Seen me in a few of them.
Yeah.
I don't smoke, but I guess I do in one of them.
No, you have to explain that now for the listeners, because I'm lost now.
I've walked in rooms that I've been in 100 times, and suddenly that room has gone back in time, or I've.
Oh, right.
Or I was in an old house that was the top. It was. My son was living in it. It was a big old mansion house, and he was living in it, but he was in there because he was doing it up. And what he was doing, he was converting it into apartments to rent out. But up in the very attics, there was obviously attic area. There was obviously where there was the servants' quarters and all that. Servants lived up there. And we were up there, and there was nothing up there. There was a light in the attic and everything, but it was just old bricks and old wood and just what an old attic in an old mansion house would look like. But as I went to walk out the door, there stood beside the door, looking straight at me, was a woman, say from the 1920s, 30s, dress, and I knew straight away that she was the head maid, the woman of the house sort of thing, that kept the house, kept everyone working. What are they called? I've forgotten what they're called. And she looked straight at me with shock, and I looked at her, and I was just as shocked to see her. And in that split second, it was as if we acknowledged each other. Yeah. And then I heard my husband say, "Are you coming?" And I looked away and looked back. She was gone, and I walked out the door.
Do you think it wasn't
a ghost? It was not a ghost.
Yeah, that's what I said. Do you think, Irene, that was just a parallel world, and she's probably spoke to somebody on her level, in her sphere of existence, and said, "I've just seen the most peculiar thing."
Yeah, I've just seen a ghost.
yeah.
Sorry, folks.
This has happened to me so many times. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it reminds me greatly of the experience at Versailles many years ago of a couple walking around the grounds, and I think this must have been, I don't know the exact year, so sometime in around about the 1950s, 40s, 30s or something like that, and they're walking around the grounds in Versailles, and they turned a corner and came smack bang into the middle of a garden party, but everybody was dressed in the dress from the time of Louis XIV.
That's right. Yeah.
Or another Louis whose name, I don't remember the number, but it was round about that time period. And obviously they were gobsmacked, thought a film was being, a film was being made there. And cut a long story short, apparently it wasn't. And they kind of left the area and thought, we'll go back and have a look. And there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Paul can actually... Sorry, go ahead.
I wonder if they could have brought an item from the location, if they interacted with these people just briefly. I don't know, I'm maybe talking stupid there, but it's just strange, isn't it? They actually entered another sphere of existence temporarily, somewhere they didn't belong.
Very strange.
Very strange. There is
I know you've had an experience.
Sorry.
No, fire away, Irene.
Again, in France, there was this couple. They were walking down this lane, weren't they? Saw this absolutely beautiful house. Fell in love with it. But they stood there looking at it for a while, taking it all in, and then they carried on their way. And they went into the nearest village. And they, while they were in the nearest village or something, I'm hoping I'm getting the story straight. They talked to people about this house. So this house didn't. They said, the house, it burned down, And of course, when they come back down that road, there was no house. It burnt down 100 years or so before, or something like that.
Very strange. I was just going to say earlier about one of your experiences, Paul.
I know what you're going to say.
I'll let you go ahead with it, mate. No, this is the top of your own house, mate. The white lights.
Oh, yeah, good God, yeah. When we first bought this property 27 years ago, it's a huge Victorian house, and I've converted it since to flats, but big mahogany staircase leading all the way around, and I was going up on a weekend to renovate it. My job was a joiner anyway, so I took our eldest daughter, Sarah, who would be about 10 or 11 at the time, and we were sleeping on a mattress at the top of the house. And I woke up one night. We'd only been there we're only at the weekend. I was doing a job in Doncaster during the week. And I thought, we've painted the spindles white. First of all, I was focused on what I thought was a figure in a large hat stood in the shadows. And I weren't asleep, and I was watching this, and I kept thinking, is it there? Is my mind playing tricks on me? Because all the doors were painted in a dark wood grain. I don't know if anybody remembers wood grain painting.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Yeah, and I thought it was vile, and I'm thinking, am I imagining this? And so anyway, I looked, and I realised the mahogany spindles were white. Yeah. And I thought, we've painted the actual staircase was an olive green, and this is the dead of night. And I turned, and Sarah's fast asleep, and I'm watching these lights, these spindles, and slowly they started to the spindles, the stays, they started to glow in luminosity until they looked like fluorescent tubes. Yeah. Seriously, and then everything just went bang, it just went white out. And the next thing I remember is waking up with the sun coming through the bedroom window. But I'd got little holes peppered in my arm, whether my right arm now or my left arm. And them kind of them little events, those things that were happened till about 1998 in this property, where I was receiving... there were strange events happening, and I was receiving scars or wounds onto my body. It was Whitley Strieber that encouraged me to get my medical records to see what was happening.
Oh, they were taking you.
Honestly, I mean, I've been looking at the records today with Christopher Turner, and the Dr. Alexander, the skin specialist at Hull Royal Infirmary. He was asking my doctors if I had a history of trauma, and saying that these wounds, these punch hole lesions that were appearing in my body every 2 to 3 months, were baffling them. They tested me for all sorts of things and did biopsies on them, because the scars were healing with what was known as giant foreign body cells, which implied a surgical procedure had taken place. But the end result was that they hadn't a clue what was happening, and they still haven't, to be honest with you. And thank God it stopped in about 1998. But that were lights in the house. lights that were seen, and the end result was me receiving scars.
Yeah, and that's actually what brought me and Paul together all those years ago, around about 96, 97.
Yeah,
we had a few telephone calls, didn't we, and discussed these events and so on. So so as I say, I've known Paul 20 odd years.
That's correct.
Well, let me ask you this, Paul. Did you ever consider going through a hypnotic regression?
I would. Some people have said, look, you really didn't ought to do it, but if we're going to touch on, if we want to call them aliens, I don't know if aliens the word, because we don't know if they're coming from other planets, and I think Irene and yourself are probably right. It's interdimensional. They're already here. Whatever they are, they're already here, or they're not having that much trouble getting here. I've seen these beings since childhood, and I used to fear saying that. And jump into Whitley Strieber once again. Whitley wanted me to talk about it in 2006, and I said I weren't ready. And I said, and we hooked up again in 2014 when I was writing the first book, and it was like popping cork off a bottle. And I'm so pleased that he encouraged me to speak about it. And what were your question, Mark? I'm sorry about that.
Well, my question was if you had considered going through a hypnotic regression to see if you can bring out those memories of these times when you wake up and you have these marks. Maybe there's something there where you're having more of this interaction. It'll help you understand better what you're dealing with. When
you've had this experience, Mark, and I'm not unique to it, you question everything about it every day because you don't have an answer, and they've left me searching. Every night when I go to bed, I'm running through these little cameos of events because all you've got is a small section of an event. Like, for instance, as a small child, it must have been the summer because it was daylight, but it was very early morning. I woke up where we lived in a small semi-detached council house in a village called Old Dennerby, and I woke up. My bedroom curtains were open because they looked onto fields, and I saw two tall beings and small beings either side of them. Hideous they were, and I were a little boy. I don't know how old. You don't document it when you're a child, do you? And I turned away and put my head into the pillar. I was absolutely frightened to death. But when I turned back, they were still there, but they were now an image from my mum and dad's wedding album. I swear that's what they were. And I thought, how did they do that? But the only way that they could have done that, because my life's knowledge consisted of very little, but I had looked at Mum and Dad's wedding album, and these beings, this intelligence, must have been able to somehow pick from my mind an image that I would feel comfortable with. I can think of no other way. I don't remember what happened after that, but I've loads of these little cameos of events that have took place throughout my life. As I say, the actual wounds or trauma that were appearing on my body stopped in about 1998, but that is what set me off on this obsessive road to looking for the truth or looking for answers. And we've all had some kind. You're not here because you're just interested in the subject. I would hazard a guess that you yourself and Irene and Chris, we've all had some kind of experience that's put us on this road.
Yeah, absolutely, completely agree with you, Paul. As you know, mine was my 1974 sighting of a
I was just going to ask you that, Chris.
That's okay. I'll go into it now, Irene. My first experience was young lad, aged about 14. It was a February, so it was getting dark around about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, as it does in Britain at that time of year. And back in those days, as I've said before, you were lucky to have a stick and a push bike to play with, and no mobile phones, no laptop computers or anything like that. And we were out this early evening and on a local building site where a new shopping arcade, a shopping centre, a mall as Americans would call it, was actually being constructed. And high mound of mud. I was sat on the top of this high mound of mud, hiding from my friends. I was going to jump up and shoot them with my stick of wood, Yeah. And as I looked into the sky, as you do, yeah. I wanted to win. And as I looked across the sky towards the southwest of the city, which, as I say, is on the north bank of the River Humber, over in the Hessel area, which is near where the Humber Bridge is, I saw a flicker of light, completely cloudless, clear sky, not a cloud in the sky. Anyway, I saw this flicker of light. It jumped across the sky, and then it jumped halfway back. So it kind of moved position 1, position 3, position 2, position 4, and it moved across the sky like that. Yeah. Now, as it got above me in this cloudless sky, I jumped up to my friends and I shouted, "Oh, guys, look up in the sky, there's a UFO," like an idiot. And I mean, I called it a UFO because back in those days we had a TV program done by Jerry Anderson which was called UFO. Exactly. And it was about Shadow and Supreme Headquarters Allied Defense Organization or something like that. It was called, and they were fighting and saving the world from an invasion of these UFO aliens. You know, who were coming to, I don't know, take people from the earth for bits and bobs of their bodies so they could do transplants and all this kind of stuff.
A bit like
that sounds gruesome now, doesn't it? Really?
But it's a bit like what's going on today, isn't it?
Parallels what's happening today.
Yeah. But I mean, I shouted up in the sky, "Look, there's a UFO, there's a UFO." And as I shouted that, and it was right above me, it blinked out and I never saw it again. I looked to my northeast, which was the direction of travel from southwest to northeast, and tried to guess in my head, in my mind's eye, where the next light would come on. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And it was that brought me into the subject. You know, I started reading the books by all the people that were around at the time, or everything about the Warminster thing that I could get my hands on, and flying saucers have landed, George Adamski, all of them, all that kind of stuff. And there was one that particularly caught my attention, and it was the retired US Marine Corps commander. I can't remember his name now. Could somebody help me out there?
I'm sorry, I can't.
Hang on a minute. Why not? That sounds
he ran NICAP. He ran NICAP. I forgot his name, unfortunately. But yeah, some of the things that he wrote about early investigations and what the Americans were doing, from about 1947 onward and through the 50s and so on, and I found the whole subject fascinating, and that's what brought me into it.
Hello?
Yep.
Are we gone?
No,
I'm still here.
Is that your fan still going?
Yes, can you hear it?
Yeah, there was some waffling then. It sounded like sheets on a washing line, didn't it? So it was,
it's really like...
So what you saw then, Chris, and you shouted UFO and it blinked out. Yeah. It sort of implies, there's a chapter I wrote in one of the books, and it sort of implies the intermind connection. It was aware of it.
Exactly. It was aware of me, what I was thinking, what I was shouting, and there was an interaction there with me personally. That's how I've always viewed that.
Jump into Bempton. There's a story, it's not that old, from a rock angler. These guys fished the cliffs off Bempton and Flamborough, and the cliffs range from 200 to 400 foot. And he was up there one evening in November, and he said it was a beautiful clear sky, and he just noticed a star, or it looked like it was in the heavens, that he'd not seen before. And I've spoke to him face to face. This guy he said, I thought, oh, Christ, I've never seen that before. It's an unusual looking star. He said there were just the moment he sort of connected with this alleged star. He said it was on top of me, literally lit the ground up like daylight. He says the grass looked silver. He says, and it was above me. Obviously, it couldn't have been a star. He said, and I just connected with it. It was there, and then it was gone. Intermind connection. These things are aware of our every move and our thoughts as well.
Well, definitely.
Here's something else to consider, because you mentioned Whitley Strieber, and I've been following Whitley since Communion came out. We had the wonderful opportunity to interview him here on the show a couple of months ago, and one of the things that he's talked about in his books, there is something called the screen memory, which sounds very similar to what you saw, something from your from that old picture to make it more easier for you to digest.
That's the family photo.
Yeah. But there's also he really started to focus, and I struggled with this concept when he first introduced it. I really struggled with it and didn't want to believe it. But over time, I've started to get the idea and accept it more, that these visitors, as he calls them, doesn't call them aliens, because he even admits he doesn't know what they are or who they are, seem to be very involved with us on a spiritual level. In fact, where Whitley and other people have reported seeing people who have died on these ships, and interacting with the ghosts or spirits, or actually, they look very real at the time, with the dead. And even in John Mack's work, I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. John Mack.
I do, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Many of the people he regressed talked about, on a spiritual level, coming in before this lifetime, agreeing to come into this lifetime for a special mission and purpose, working with these beings. Some said they're even these beings themselves. They came in, agreed to come in for a human lifetime in order to do this stuff. And of course, when they're living in this lifetime, they don't remember it. So when they get abducted, they get all upset and saying, "You're doing this without my permission, blah, blah, blah." Even Whitley one time told them, "You have no right to do this." And they said, "We have every right." And because I think it's also because, when we're here in these meat suits, temporary meat suits, in our memories, we don't remember anything else. We don't remember past lives or anything like that most of the time. But we may be more involved in collaborating with these beings than we know.
Do you think we're there? Then we're just a vessel that's placed in the meat suit, and we're there just to nurture the soul, nurture the vessel, and gain more experience of, I wouldn't say life, because they may perceive what we find of interest on, what we think they're interested in. Maybe we may be way off the mark. They may be looking at other things within us. But do you think that we're here just on a learning process then?
Well, I mean, the typical idea of reincarnation, if they agree with that concept, is coming through multiple lifetimes in order to learn. Earth is a school. And again, I go back to Whitley, because a lot of what he originally said when he was interacting with these beings, he asked one time, "What is the Earth?" And they said, "It's a school." And, from a spiritual standpoint, we come into this life to learn certain life lessons. You can read about doing something, or you can have experience doing something, and you're going to learn more through experience. And that's why we come into these lifetimes. And I think, whether you're talking from a spiritual level or whether you're talking from a ufology level, people come into this lifetime with different missions, different things that they're supposed to either learn or do or be a part of. And, this life we're living is temporary. It's almost like, we're actors in a play. We're playing a bit part for a couple of shows. And then when the show's over, we get to go home and think about, oh, that was an interesting experience.
Yeah, there could be some truth in that, Mark,
Well, my memory's just come back, folks. I apologise. It was Major Donald Keogh, who I remember reading the books about back in the early days when I started. Yeah, I kind of I have a different view of what the soul is and where it is and where it goes and what happens when we die. But it's not a religious-based program, so I'm not going to go into that. So but yeah. It's this again. It's all a very fascinating subject, and this is why I love being involved with it.
It is, and we've all got different views and slightly different opinions. But what's good is there's 4 people talking now, and I probably said things that some of you don't agree with, but you've not gone, "No, you're completely wrong," and I've not said likewise. I've not said it to you guys, because at the end of the day, they're our opinions, and if we're wrong, we're wrong. But nobody's actually got a handle on what is the truth of this subject.
No, exactly. Exactly.
Nobody can tell. No,
it's all good. But I'm gone. Sorry, Irene.
So Paul, the experiences that you had, you've had a lot of different types of experiences with dealing with these things. Do you have any memories? You said you saw the creatures once, but do you have any memories of being taken, being on a ship at all, or is it just you just see these lights and then wake up later with these marks?
No, I've no memories of being taken, but I've got quite a lot of memories, little cameos of events. And as I say, as a young boy, I saw them. I mean, I didn't see them and have some kind of marvelous interaction. They weren't good experiences. And I remember waking up in the night and seeing a small fetus-like being sat observing me. It weren't asleep. It weren't a lucid dream. I'm 55 years old. I can see this as clear as I can now. And if I've tried to give examples of what the texture of this thing looked like, and we lived in a house that had no central heating, and probably you guys might remember when frost used to appear on the inside of the window frames.
Yeah.
I do.
That kind of sparkly texture that this being had, and I've seen them. I've seen them in the bedroom in the house in Old Dennerby. I've probably got about 20 little cameos of seeing them. Then I've got other memories of waking up in absolutely excruciating pain, and I don't know what they're doing, and my bed ran along the side of the wall, and I could never understand this. So I might have been somewhere else, Mark, and a screen memory placed, because there was a tall one at the wall side, and there was one at the other side, and they're looking at me, and there's tears running down my eyes, and I'm screaming for help, and I can't scream. There's no noise coming out of my mouth, and it's a terrifying experience. I mean, it really don't bother me to say it now, but I dreaded saying it years ago. I don't think I would have done, but I wet the bed till I was 13 years old because I was terrified to leave the bedroom on a night. You know, and the voices were the worst, and I don't hear voices. I'm not schizophrenic, but it will make sense in a moment. Laid in bed in this little council house, dead of night, and you'd feel the pressure on the bottom of the bed, and then it was almost as though something was rolling a heavy, close-fitting carpet up the bed, slowly rolling up the bed until it's on your shoulder, and I would be bunched up, perhaps sleeping on the pillar if I could. I was that terrified, and then I would hear voices. Something were talking to me in a slow, droned-out, horrible, demonic sounding tone. It was sort of barashi. It was absolutely terrifying.
That sounds like night terrors, doesn't it?
But yeah, if that's what night terrors are, Irene, but they weren't dreams.
People that have these night terrors, they always report on seeing some sort of being, whether it's an old hag or something like that.
The incubus.
And I tell you what, a friend of mine, he had a little girl, and he phoned me up one day. And he said she keeps screaming out at night about this old woman beside her bed, an old witch. She called it a witch.
Yeah.
And this was a 5-year-old child.
Yeah.
Barely knew what a witch was, I suppose, because of the cartoons, but didn't really know what was going on. And it was happening to her night after night after night.
You know, we've got grandchildren, and two of the boys, one's not even 3 yet, and he says, obviously I won't say his name or anything, but he says that he's been falling out of bed, and when they were putting him in his bed, his dad was saying, "Why don't you sleep in the middle? Why are you sleeping on the edge?" He says, "Because of the man." He said, "What man?" He says, "He comes out of the wall. And he picks me up and he tries to eat me, but he doesn't eat me. Then we shoot down the hole, but he puts me back."
Do you know something? My son, when he was 2 years old, right, and he had his own bedroom at 2 years old, and he was in his first big bed at 2 years old.
Yeah.
Right? He would come into us every night crying, wanting to come in our bed. Anyway, we got to the bottom of it, and he said the little green man used to come out of the wall, walk through his bed and stand beside him, looking at him.
Yeah, it's just strange that these children are telling similar stories. Our grandson, that sounded articulate how I said that, and he's I don't think he might be going on for 4 now, but when he was saying this, I don't think he was 3. His mum and dad are school teachers. They invest a lot of time into him, and that's how he said it. He picks me up. He tries to eat me, but he doesn't eat me. And then we shoot down into his home, but he puts me back. And, you know, we don't talk to him about things like that. We don't encourage any of that. And the grandson to one of the other daughters, he's a lovely little lad, but let's say there's nothing wrong with him, but he likes to play and run about. He's not bothered about learning like the other one is. But he talked about the blue men in his bedroom.
Well, with Jamie, it was a green man. Yeah. Jamie's 38 years old now, and he still says that he used to see the green man come out the wall. Little green man used to come out the wall.
And what does Jamie at 38 years old have to gain by continuing with this story? And Nothing. He's
That's
telling
from
the
2
truth.
years old.
He's telling
Yeah.
the truth. Yeah, he's telling the truth.
Oh,
I mean,
I-
you know, we could learn a lot from children. I mean, I suppose we'd have to be very careful how we question them and not prompt them or lead them. But when they're coming out with these stories, I mean, I've recorded them telling me, you know, because I want them later in life to be able to hear themselves and what they were telling me. Because a lot of the time, I think the children lose these memories. You know, I think it probably happens to far more children than we imagine. And I don't know, as we progress through life, these memories just dissipate. Some of us hang on to them. You know, I mean, that's what I said. I don't think I'm unique in this. I think the actual scale of what's happening is probably massive.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think to that, Chris. I mean,
I'm glad you just started. I'm glad you asked me that then, Paul. The telephone just rang here, which is why I turned the microphone off, to be quite honest with you. It's been picked up downstairs now. Yeah, I'm really, really sorry, but with the telephone going, I didn't get most of that last conversation. So if you give me a brief review.
What was your views on, we'll not call it alien abduction, but the sort of the interaction that children have with their, we parents said he's got an imaginary friend.
Well, it is the case, and it has been shown in the past that as youngsters we're more open to these kind of things, and that youngsters can have these experiences. You know, I personally believe that kids are more prone to seeing these kind of things. I do know my own son. The youngest one, who's now actually about 37, 38 years old also, he actually saw snakes in his bed at one point. And I had to go into the bedroom, talk to him, try and calm him down. He could still see the snakes. And I had to hit the bed, you know, and thump the bed to actually try and kill off these visions that, you know, eventually said they've gone. So I think children are more prone to these kind of things. Yeah. And it's just a pity we lose it, really, as we grow older.
Yeah.
Or some of us lose it, should I say, as we grow older.
But you saying that about snakes. Now, my other son, my younger one, he sat there one night picking up invisible things off of his bed. And when I asked him what he was doing, he was only a child at the time, he said, "There's spiders everywhere, Mum. Look at them." He's picking up these spiders.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
It is very strange.
It's the power of the mind, or the power of something that's been suggested and put through our eyes, that they can see things. Are those images and those thoughts being placed into the minds, or is it just this absolutely incredible power of the brain to blow a thought up, a fearful thought, spiders or snakes, and actually
it is
real.
said, isn't it, that we only, I mean, it's said, Paul, that, you know, we only use so much of our brain. Yeah. So, you know, who's to know what's in the other bit that we don't use, you know, and you know, I'm certain my son saw snakes.
You're right.
Well, that's the other thing to consider is, are they seeing hallucinations? Or are they seeing something real that, for whatever reason, being children, they're able to tune into, and they can see something that we as adults, or have been programmed out of us, we can't see it. And so that makes you just wonder, how strange is the world? I mean, look at cultures that use, like in Indian cultures in Mexico and South America, using everything from peyote to ayahuasca to be able to trip and have these experiences. And, you know, most people just chalk it up, well, your dude's just tripping, you know, like I'm being on LSD. But what if they're seeing something that's real? It's not the imagination. It's not the brain on drugs or haywire. That maybe these plants are able to lower whatever wall we have up that prevents us from
reduce the barrier.
And that prevents the sphere of existence.
Exactly, and maybe in these altered states, we're more in tune, not less in tune.
No, I would agree entirely, Mark. I really would. You correct me if I'm wrong, because you probably know more about this than me, but ayahuasca, do they call it the vine of the dead? Is that the plant where people tend to see aliens or beings from other worlds? Is that the one?
I think it is. I haven't quite heard it in that context, but I know it's big in Central and South America, the Peruvian Indians and Bolivia. They use it a lot down there. In Mexico, you heard of Carlos Castanedos and his books, and he was just doing peyote buttons for most of his tripping. But, they're all hallucinogenics, natural hallucinogenics. But yet, that's the thing. Are they really hallucinating? Or are they seeing
or are they actually having
something else?
Real experience in an altered state?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Again,
I think it is.
When you think about it, right, people that go ghost hunting and everything very rarely see anything. Somebody just walking through an old building, maybe making their way up to do something, or just not even thinking about ghosts, suddenly there it is.
Yeah.
Or
you got more chance when you're not looking and you're not being aware of it of seeing it.
Well, I agree, Eileen.
This is exactly what me and Paul were talking about a little bit earlier, during the actual break, in that, we seem to have these opportunities in life where that window, that paranormal window opens up. Hence, my experience in '74 and my experience in the mid-1990s when I saw the lights over the Humber and the lights, when I was younger and when I was 14 were flying over the building site. I was in the right place at the right time, and as Paul has often said himself, location is key.
Yeah, and the phenomena doesn't perform. You're right, Irene, to order.
Yeah.
And we're going there tonight, and I want to make the best of Chris's time, because he's here for a few days. But the chances of us seeing something are very slim. All last night, not a thing. And, like Chris said before the break, we were discussing it, and you've 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week, times that by 12 months. We're only there for a little snapshot of time, and we could be observe, and then somebody can email me and say, I were at Bempton, or I were at this place the other week, and we saw this. Totally out of the blue, totally unexpected. These people weren't looking for it, and it just happened.
Well, this is it. This is the way it always seems to work,
I would agree.
If you were going up there for a midnight picnic, just for a midnight picnic, not knowing anything about this place, you'd more than likely see it.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth in what you're saying. Yeah, too right.
Well, we were mentioning earlier, and this is another thing to consider, is that reality itself is much more fluid and operating on multiple levels at once than we realize. I mean, they're just now coming out with science and with string theory postulating that there are multiple realities all occupying the same space at once. And the fact that time is an illusion because all time is happening at once. It's only our brains that perceive it as linear. Now, take that into consideration with people who have seen things like your child seeing the snakes or the spiders, and are they seeing something real? Are they tuning into a parallel world that's existing in the same space? There are stories that I've read, many different types of stories, especially people being involved with high strangeness and even UFO type of activity, where they'll be driving along and they come across, there's like a diner or something or a restaurant in the middle of this one location, and they go in there and they have some experiences and things just seem to be a bit off kilter, and then the next day they get up and they drive right past the place and there's nothing there. But yet it wasn't like it wasn't like the Versailles.
That's like the house in Paris.
Yeah, it's not.
Versailles,
but instead of it going back in time, like you're seeing a past event, this seemed very modern, and but yet it was not there, and there was never anything there. So are people experiencing an alternate dimension, an alternate timeline or reality that's coincided? Are we able to flit in and out of these realities? There's the this famous case back in the 1950s in Japan where this gentleman got off an international flight and was stopped at customs because he had a passport that was for a country that didn't exist. Are you familiar with this story?
No, not at all.
Oh, yes.
Please go ahead.
You can find it online. I forget the name of the country, but he had a passport, he had money and everything, but this country did not exist. And he was able to point it out on a map where it should be, which was in the northern part of France. That was like there was a strip for a small country could go in, and that's where it was from. And the Japanese officials, they had no idea what to do with this guy. His passport seemed legitimate. The money seemed real, but yet it wasn't for any country that anybody knew of. He was supposedly there on business. So they put him up in a hotel and kept him there with an armed guard until they could figure out what to do with him and where he was. And the next morning when they went in to get him, he was gone. His bags were gone, everything. But they had guards outside the door. Nobody left. He just vanished. So what happened?
And he said when he was being interviewed that he'd been back and forth to Japan on business many times.
Yes, many times.
Crazy.
Yeah, and
interesting story.
You see, this is what we study. We're more researching interdimensions than anything else, I think, me and Mark.
There's another story where a woman who went into work one day and her office is gone. There's another name on the door. And it turns out she works in another office, is in another department. And some people there she knew and some people she didn't. And she feels like that she came in from an alternate reality and everything was changed. Everything looked practically the same, but yet there were these subtle differences that just she didn't know what to do. And from what I vaguely remember the story, and again, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember all the details, she was continued to be in this reality, but her memories are of working a different position with that same company, being in a different office, having different responsibilities.
It's very strange.
Very strange, yeah.
Didn't we have a guest or somebody apply to come on the show not so long ago? And is this me being from another dimension? I don't know. But I seem to remember someone applying to come on the show not so long ago that lived in a different dimension. They were stuck in this one.
I'm drawing a blank on that, but you know what? Where have I
got that from? Then?
I don't know. Maybe it was the show that we're doing in the other dimension. We're double booking. We're double booking guests.
It's an interesting one, and it's food for thought. It's really good.
Well, I don't know where I got that from then, because I know somebody's applied to us in the past, a couple of months ago, applied to come up, said that they're from another dimension, and they're trapped in this dimension and they can't get back.
I don't remember that.
I think it was back in 1957 when the theory of multiple realities actually came prominent, really. I can't remember his name. It was a physicist, Hugh Everett. He provided the theory when it suggested really that all possible alternate histories and futures are real within their own worlds, but again, we're going off here on a really, really big tangent that, but it's an absolutely fantastic thought. I mean, how many worlds are there?
Well, food for thought.
I'll tell you another one, right?
Okay, go ahead.
For thought. Think about time travel. Right, I time travel 100 years into the future. I'm dead. Yeah. In this life, I'm dead. But I'm still existing in 100 years in the future.
Yeah.
Yep.
But in that time, hey, this one, I'm dead.
See, how do you?
Come, Max.
No, I was just going to comment, saying, I'm going to be very busy 100 years in the future. I'm going to be a rapid state of decomposition.
Yeah.
Well, listen, guys.
Anywhere.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to go and leave Chris and yourselves to chat, if that's okay.
That's fine, Paul.
Good luck tonight.
Good hunting tonight, and you definitely have to get back with us and let us know if anything happened.
I would love to. Yeah, and could I just briefly say about the books, or do you want to let Chris do it?
You carry on.
Go ahead.
Anybody wanting to purchase the books or having a look at the Truth Proof books, they can be found on Amazon. Just Google the words Truth Proof into your search engine. The first thing you'll find is the books, and they can be bought on Amazon or via PayPal, the Truth Proof website, truthproof.webs.com. And it's been a pleasure talking to the three of you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Paul.
And we will talk about the books again at the end, even though you said it once. We're going to remind everyone.
Yes.
So you have a good night. You have a good night tonight, and I hope you come up with something.
We will. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Have a great night, Paul. Nice to speak with you. I'll catch up with you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Mark. Bye-bye, Chris.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Well, Chris, I was gonna comment that, and again, I'm giving Whitley Strieber a lot of press tonight. I hope he's happy with that because, because he had also mentioned in his works about multiple realities mirroring this one, and he's actually, during some of his deep trance meditation experiences, even out of body experience, he has talked about encountering different versions of himself in these different realities, in different states.
That is fascinating.
In different states of either, like there was one where he and his wife were like very poor but happy together. Another one, he was alone and miserable, and he would just encounter different versions of himself living out a variation of the exact same life, but yet there are differences. And that goes to this other theory, the fact that we've discussed before, that when we're here, we're not living just one life, we're living all lives at once. And in fact, we're living multiple versions of each life. So
I have a question there. If we have our own existence in these other alternate realities, if we're alive in those other realities, do we die? Are we born and do we die at the same time? That's an interesting thought.
I don't know. And, if you look at it, go back again, that time is not linear, that all time is happening at once. And there's a concept that Irene and I had been kicking around for about a year now about the idea of the mind. And I'm not talking about the brain. I'm talking about the actual mind, or the essence of who we are. And it goes beyond the soul or the spirit. There is the actual mind aspect of who we are. Whether you want to call it like a piece of the God consciousness or whatnot, I'm still trying to figure it out. But if that is let's just say, using an analogy, that it's sitting over there on the other side and it's able to project itself out to live these lifetimes, almost like, fine hairs or tendrils coming off, of hair coming off of a peach. And each hair is going out and shooting out and living a different lifetime and a different experience, and even multiple versions of the same lifetime. So it's possible that you could die in one, and yet still, the other lifetimes are going to continue because it's all part of that one giant mind or essence of who we are.
Yeah. It is. Again, it's a fascinating thought, and that is something, to be quite honest with you both, Mark and Aaron, that is something that to me is just a little bit deeper than I can handle, to be quite honest with you. But
we do go deep. Very
well,
deep.
That's the idea of the program. That's why I agreed to come on, so I could learn one or two things myself. But you see, I also have a different view of what the soul is. To me, the soul is what makes you the person that you are. But I also believe the soul can die. You know what I mean? So it's the soul. You are the soul, because the breath of life was breathed into you. That's my own personal opinion, basically.
But breathed in by whom?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? Was it a god that did that? As in the God of the Bible, or is it is it E.T. or the gods that were worshipped in the old days? It's a fascinating thing. And my own personal opinion is that we become people, obviously, when we're created, and created in the womb, basically.
Yeah. So if the soul dies when you die, that is the end of it, then there cannot be anything afterwards.
Yeah. That's my own personal opinion, yeah.
Mm.
You see, what you got to remember... seeing this, again, you see, we talk about ghosts, people that, like
Granny Smith's ghost and things like that, or your grandfather's ghost. Are they really ghosts? Are they? Or are they all part of this other phenomena that we've been talking about earlier on?
Well, let's just go back a little bit. The term soul is it was originally used in the Hebrew and Greek. The term soul, it was in the Bible that it was originally written. It was written in mainly in Hebrew and Greek, which was where we mainly get the term soul from. Now, the Hebrew word for soul is nephesh, or the Greek word is psyche, P-S-Y-K-H-E.
Psyche. Yeah, psyche.
Yeah. So, and it was written over 800 times in the scriptures, but there are scriptures that do say the soul that is sinning itself can die. And it also describes souls in a boat. When I think it was Peter was traveling across harbour to Crete or to Malta, got involved in a storm, and the Bible scripture, the scripture in the Bible says that there were 8 or 9 or 10 or so many souls in the boat. Now that doesn't mean that it was an invisible thing that was sat there rowing a boat. It's describing them as people. But also in Noah's day, if people believe that he existed, it says there's one scripture, I think 1 Peter 3:20, where it says a few people, that is 8 souls, were carried safely through the water.
Well, so even today, when we describe, that's what I'm going to say. Even today, when we describe people, we say, "Oh, those poor souls."
Exactly. To me, it doesn't mean something that goes on or goes to a different dimension, goes to heaven. It is again, it's a fascinating subject. You see, today I'm more interested in why people feel the need to believe in a God than actually is there a God? You know what I mean? It's all part of the paranormal to me.
Yeah. You've lost me now.
Sorry, guys.
Well, not lost me. You've gobsmacked me now. I just don't know what to say. What about
it's okay.
Well, the other thing is and that's part of the problem we run into with these old texts is translation. Everything is translation, mistranslation, and when you're talking about texts written thousands of years ago and they've been written and rewritten and copied, and we mentioned earlier about Christianity being with Constantine kind of usurping the Christian religion and putting in a lot of pagan influences into it that most people don't have any idea about. The councils of Nicaea and Constantinople, where they picked and choose which books they wanted in because some books they didn't like. They didn't like what it had to say. People, the King James version of the Bible. Well, King James went through and he made a lot of changes. So
he did. Yes, he did indeed.
And then now we have modern English, and there's different English versions of the Bible, and they use different words that have totally different meaning. So
exactly, that's why it's so important to get back to the original translations. Again, become an investigator, get up off your backside, and go and find this information out.
Yeah.
And so many people don't do that because they just get spoon-fed what they're told, and that goes true for, as we mentioned, paranormal investigators. I mean, the one thing is I'm not as involved in the paranormal community as I used to be. I used to go to the conventions and network with other investigators and talk to everybody, and then the last few years I just feel like, and this is going to sound like me bragging, and I'm not, I feel like I'm graduating into higher learning, and they're still down in kindergarten because they keep repeating the same old tired stuff about ghosts and, somebody died and he doesn't know he's dead and he's still haunting here, and that's what ghosts are. And, they're regurgitating stuff that a lot of it was developed back in the spiritualist age with no proof as to what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. The important thing here is to search and to dig and to find and get the correct. I mean, I've got a Greek copy of the the Greek script. Well, it's the Greek scriptures, which are basically word for word translated into English. And if you read it, for example, we might say, "Oh, I went to 1, 2, 3." It might say 1, 2, 3. I went to. So you've got to read things and get the right words. Yes, I understand people. They have a need to find information, but you've got to make sure the information that you're getting is correct, and that is why I started the magazine, really.
Oh.
Well, and
we have brought this interview, or this conversation, not an interview, it's a conversation, round.
What are you doing? Dropping your microphone there?
It's gone. Yeah, I knocked it over.
Was you juggling?
Yeah, juggling, trying to stop it falling on the floor. But no, we brought this conversation right round to the beginning again, and that is brilliant. This is what I like about this radio show. But even more than that, I want to know more about this magazine.
Well, the magazine itself, we're up to issue number 15, which is coming out in August. All the back issues can be purchased from the shop online, which you get. There's 2 years of 6 issues per year, should I say? And it's you can buy all the past issues in there. It's free to read at the moment on issue, but there are links on the magazine website, which is chris0597.wixsite.com/outer-limits-mag, and that'll take you to the reading platform. Issue 14 is on there on the magazine website at the moment. Fantastic article from Peter Robbins talking about the UN and UFO conference that he actually witnessed. Way back in the mists of time, 77, 78, I think that was. Yeah. And we've had brilliant articles from people like Philip Mantle, Nick Pope, Peter Robbins, Bruce Maccabee. You name them, they've actually been in the magazine. And it has actually been compared to the former UFO mag by Graham Birdsall. It's also been compared to Phenomena magazine, Steve Meara's magazine. And again, this is all completely free. And when I first started the magazine, after about 5 or 6 months, I thought, well, it would be nice to put on a conference. So we held our first conference September 2017. We had Philip Mantle speaking, Malcolm Robinson, who's a noted UFO and ghost investigator from Britain. We had Paul speaking about his first book, Truth Proof 1. Absolutely fascinating, the way that he, as you probably gathered this evening, the way he presents information and brings it over.
Oh yeah.
He is a fascinating gentleman to speak to. I'm very proud to call him a friend. I interviewed a young lady by the name of Sasha Claire Christie.
Oh, yeah, we know Sasha.
And I actually talked to her about her own experience and what she actually went through in Wales. And an award was given last year to John Hanson for his Haunted Skies series of books. And I made a little talk as well. And it was so successful for the first one. We had about 140, 150 people there. And people have said to me, "Oh, you're doing one next year. Who are you going to get?" Etc. Etc.
Just get round to this.
Oh, you come out of doing a conference on such a big buzz. Yeah. It is fantastic, So I dived straight in at the deep end and said, "Yeah, I'll do another one." And I'm very, very, very pleased to actually say that this year we've got Colonel Charles Holt coming to the UK for, the Colonel himself isn't as young as he used to be, so it could actually be, maybe one of the last times that he comes over here to speak to us. He's got actually some new information about a new witness to the third night of events who is ex-military, and it's actually ex-security at the bases. So it'll be quite interesting to hear what he has to say about that.
That will be very, very interesting. Is Sasha going?
Sasha is coming along. She's got a ticket. Yeah. She's going to come along and have a sit down and listen. But she's actually interested in our second deadline speaker, which is Mary Rodwell. As you know, she's the founder and principal of Australian Close Encounter Resource Network.
That's right, yeah.
Born in the UK, She migrated to Western Australia in 91 and currently resides in Queensland. She's a former nurse, midwife, health educator, and she's been employed as a professional counsellor. She's also quite involved with Free, I believe it is, in America. And since 1994, not only has she done 2 books, but she's also worked in private practice as a professional counsellor and hypnotherapist. And she's closely involved with people who experience CE3, CE4, etc. And she's going to be talking to us on day 1, because this is a 2-day conference, and on the second day she's holding a special workshop for people who have experienced close encounters.
Oh, you know what you want to do? You want to get Paul on the couch.
Do you know what? I was just been thinking about that. I think we'll get him in there, I think, on the Sunday. Yeah, I mean, the first day, September the 1st, 2018. Doors open at 10 o'clock. We start at 10:30 with a first speaker, and we'll be finishing at 7 p.m. And on the second day, we open at 12, and Mary finishes at 4. And, not only do we have those wonderful people, we also have John Hanson, who was the first award winner last year. He's going to be going through his own publications. He's got records going back to 1940s, and he's going to be doing a talk based on all of that. Paul will be speaking about the various events that have been going on in the Bridlington area, the crashed aircraft I mentioned earlier, RAF tornadoes and others, and and Paul's presentation last year was absolutely fascinating. This year, I am confident will be no different. And we've also got myself. That'll put everybody off.
And I'm sure you'll find something to talk about.
Well, I'm going to be talking about events in the local area. We have an experience from the mid-1990s of an alien face at the window, and a photograph was taken of this, and I'm going to be discussing that and 1 or 2 other cases from the local area.
Okay, well, we've got 8 minutes left. All right, so which day is it that Colonel Holt is talking on?
Colonel Holt will be speaking on September the 1st, 2018, at the Freedom Centre, 97 Preston Road, Hull, HU9 3QB.
And the name of the conference again is?
UFOs Then and Now.
UFOs Then and Now. And they can get the tickets from?
Well, if they just look for the magazine website, there's a link on the website. As I mentioned earlier, chris0597.wixsite.com/outer-limits-mag, and there's a link on the website there to get your conference tickets. It's first day is £19, second day is only £12. So I'm not asking people to fork out a small fortune to come and be informed.
I'm just wondering how I'd get there from here.
Bus.
Bus.
You can always see if that old man will show up and give you a lift.
Yeah, true. But no, I'd like to go. I'd like to buy a ticket and go. I really would. But September.
Yeah.
September the 1st.
It's September the 1st and 2nd for both events, both days. And it's the first time I've actually done a 2-day conference. I did the 1 day last year. But going back to the late 1990s, I did an evening presentation with Graham Birdsall and Russ Callahan when I run the whole UFO Society. And that was great. We had over 300 people, but this was just before the millennium, and everybody was more aware of the paranormal, and I think more people were attracted to it because of that. But hopefully they learned something. And I know last year a lot of people said to me, do you know what, Chris, absolutely fantastic day. I've learned something new today that I didn't know. And this year, of course, with Colonel Holt being there, people are going to learn a little bit more information about Rendlesham. And no doubt Colonel Holt will have a few things to say.
And new information as that. Information.
Yes. I mean, last year we brought out we had a film that was of a new Rodwell witness, Charles Forgust, who was a deputy sheriff. So we're hoping for something along those lines. This deputy sheriff actually said he witnessed the crash down Saucer near Rodwell. And again, that's all in Outer Limits magazine. It was an exclusive, world exclusive we had that as.
Right, so people, get Outer Limits magazine. Get Outer Limits magazine, buy your tickets to the conference. Okay, I'm telling you that. Do it. Also, right, so again, we've got to plug the books for Paul. And that was what word was that? Truth?
There's Truth Proof, the truth that leaves no proof, which is the groundwork for his first presentation last year. And his second book is Truth Proof 2. I can't remember the rest of it, but it's Truth Proof 2, ladies and gentlemen. I'm blaming my age. Senile dementia. I'm getting on for 60.
Oh, you're only a kiddie.
It's the Outer Nowhere. That's what it's called. It's Truth Proof 2, the Outer Nowhere.
Okay. And that can be bought from his website, Truth Proof, whatever. What was it? Truth Proof? What was his website called?
Truthproofwebs.com, I think it was.
Google Truth Proof, you'll get there.
Yeah, they'll get
Or Amazon. And you can order it by the IBS number through Waterstones.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you get the if you don't want to buy it from Amazon, get the IBS number off of Amazon, go into Waterstones and order it through Waterstones.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll provide it.
They will, because they do my books.
So, Chris.
Anyway,
real quick, we have 4 minutes left. So let's make the time real quick. What would you say was your most odd experience you've ever had?
I would say my most odd experience was the second encounter back in the middle 1990s when the light came down over the riverbank and split into two separate directions. That was the one that really did leave me baffled. Hang on a minute, what's going on here? Surely it can't have done that and gone that way, then gone that way. And it's that has... Well, it's that kind of has made me think a little bit more and get more involved with the subject, than I actually had previously. As I say, I started in 1974. I ran the Hull UFO Society in the mid-1990s. And then, to be quite honest, I took a period of years away from about 2002. And I got back involved around about 3 years ago. And it's something that I'd always missed. And it was because of that experience that kept niggling in my head. What was that? I've got to find out what that was, And now, as I say, though, my own personal thing is to get information out to people, and that's why I do the magazine.
Yeah. Well, I think this has been a fantastic show. It really has. Don't you, Mark?
You've definitely going to have to have you back at some point.
Yeah, I was going to say, bring you back. You've got to come back.
Oh dear.
Yes, you've got to come back. Both of you.
Subject you to some more of Irene and I's witty banter. Yeah.
Yeah, but honestly, Irene, you've got to learn to juggle better. You really do. Yeah, juggling your microphone around a little bit more. Do you know what? I think myself and Paul, I'm sure Paul would come on individually, and you would only ask him one question. That'd be it for 2 hours. You'd have enough to fill a 2-hour radio show. But with myself, I'm more than happy to come back on with Paul. I'm happy to come back on myself and just have a chin wag.
Yeah, it'd be absolutely fantastic to have you back again. And I want to know a bit more about how he's getting on with this mutilation business, how that's progressing in the future.
Come to the conference, you'll find out.
Yeah, and we also want to know as well how the conference, if I don't get there, how the conference went, what Colonel Holt had to say.
Well, I'm hoping to actually film the conference this year. I wanted to do that last year, and Russ Callahan, who also spoke last year, was going to film it for us. But unfortunately, the lighting in there wasn't set correctly. So this year, I'm going to go in on the Friday beforehand, set everything up properly, sort the lighting out where I want it and how strong I want it. And then hopefully, I'm going to film it this year. And then it may even come out on a DVD.
Oh, hear that, people?
That would be nice.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, it would be. It would be. Absolutely would be. That's a good idea, actually.
Well, it's something that people asked me about last year, and you know, I wanted to do that, but because I trusted the centre itself, which can actually house up to 300 people, by the way, I trusted the centre themselves to set it all up for me. But the screen in there as well. So just make this last point before we finish. The screen in there is big enough to show the latest Hollywood movies on. So if you want to see detailed information from, you know, downed RAF jets, animal mutilations, what the Colonel's got to say, my presentation, and see the alien face at the window, which I've got a photograph of, you know, you need really to come and see it properly up close. Get off your bums and come and see us.
Okay, well, we're down to our last 30 seconds. So, Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show. We've loved having you here. This has been an awesome conversation tonight.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you very much, Irene, and thank you very much, Mark.
And Chris, don't go away, because we'll talk about more bookings, okay?
Yeah,
and
sure.
thank you everyone for listening to Paranormal UK Radio here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network, and we can be heard where?
Everywhere.
All right, have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.